Good morning, everybody. This is Ron, and welcome to Story Time. So today we're continuing with, I believe it's the third chapter. Anyways, this is, by the way, February 2nd, 2017, 6:43 a.m., and I'm recording this on location at Lovebird's Cafe and Bakery on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, California. And so we're continuing with Chapter 3 of a nonfiction book by Ayn Rand titled The Virtue of Selfishness. And this chapter is dealing with what it calls the ethics of emergencies, but basically what it is a dissertation on the difference between egoistic ethics and the ethics of altruism. The proper method of judging when or whether one should help another person is by reference to one's own rational self-interest and one's own hierarchy of values. The time, money, or effort one gives or the risk one takes should be proportionate to the value of the person in relation to one's own happiness. To illustrate this on the altruist's favorite example, the issue of saving a drowning person. The person to be saved is a stranger. It is morally properly to save him only when the danger to one's own life is minimal. When the danger is great, it would be immoral to attempt it. Only a lack of self-esteem could permit one to value one's life no higher than that of any random stranger. And, conversely, if one is drowning, one cannot expect a stranger to risk his life for one's sake, remembering that one's life cannot be as valuable to him as his own. If the person to be saved is not a stranger, then the risk one should be willing to take is greater in proportion to the greatness of that person's value to oneself. If it is the man or woman one loves, then one can be willing to give one's own life to save him or her for the selfish reason that life without the loved person could be unbearable. Conversely, if a man is able to swim and save his drowning wife, but becomes panicky, gives in to an unjustified, irrational fear, and lets her drown, then spends his life in loneliness and misery, one would not call him selfish. One would condemn him morally for his treason to himself and to his own values. That is, his failure to fight for the preservation of a value crucial to his own happiness. Remember, the values are that which one acts to gain and or keep, and that one's own happiness has to be achieved by one's own effort. Since one's own happiness is the moral purpose of one's life, the man who fails to achieve it because of his own default, because of his own failure to fight it, is morally guilty. The virtue involved in helping those one loves is not selflessness or sacrifice, but integrity. Integrity is loyalty to one's convictions and values. It is the policy of acting in accordance with one's values, of expressing, upholding, and translating them into practical reality. If a man professes to love a woman, yet his actions are indifferent, inimical, or damaging to her, it is his lack of integrity that makes him immoral. The same principle applies to relationships among friends. If one's friend is in trouble, one should act to help him by whatever non-sacrificial means are appropriate. For instance, if one's friend is starving, it is not a sacrifice, but an act of integrity to give him money for food rather than buy some insignificant gadget for oneself, because his value is important in the scale of one's personal values. If the gadget means more than the friend's suffering, one had no business pretending to be his friend. The practical implementation of friendship, affection, and love consists of incorporating the rational welfare of the person involved into one's own hierarchy of values, then acting accordingly. But this is a reward which men have to earn by means of their virtues, and which one cannot grant to mere acquaintances or strangers. What then should one properly grant to strangers? The generalized respect and goodwill which one should grant to a human being in the name of the potential value he represents, until and unless he forfeits it. A rational man does not forget that life is the source of all values, and as such a common bond among living beings as against inanimate matter, that other men are potentially able to achieve the same virtues as his own and thus be of enormous value to him. This does not mean that he regards human lives as interchangeable with his own. He recognizes the fact that his own life is the source, not only of all of his values, but of his capacity to value. Therefore, the value he grants to others is only a consequence, an extension, a secondary projection of the primary value, which is himself. The respect and goodwill that men of self-esteem feel toward other human beings is profoundly egoistic. They feel, in effect, other men are of value because they are of the same species as myself. In revering living entities, they are revering their own life. This is the psychological basis of any emotion of sympathy and any feeling of species solidarity. Since men are born tabula rasa, both cognitively and morally, a rational man regards strangers as innocent until proven guilty, and grants them that initial goodwill in the name of their human potential. After that, he judges them according to the moral character they have actualized. If he finds them guilty of major evils, his goodwill is replaced by contempt and moral condemnation. If one values human life, one cannot value its destroyers. If he finds them to be virtuous, he grants them personal, individual value and appreciation in proportion to their virtues. It is on the ground of that generalized goodwill and respect for the value of human life that one helps strangers in an emergency, and only in an emergency. It is important to differentiate between the rules of conduct in an emergency situation and the rules of conduct in the normal conditions of human existence. This does not mean a double standard of morality. The standard and the basic principles remain the same, but their application to either case requires precise definitions. An emergency is an unchosen, unexpected event, limited in time, that creates conditions under which human survival is impossible, such as a flood, an earthquake, a fire, a shipwreck. In an emergency situation, men's primary goal is to combat the disaster, escape the danger, and restore normal conditions, to reach dry land, to put out the fire, etc. By normal conditions, I mean metaphysically normal in the nature of things, and appropriate to human existence. Men can live on land, but not in water or in a raging fire. Since men are not omnipotent, it is metaphysically possible for unforeseeable disasters to strike them, in which case their only task is to return to those conditions under which their lives can continue. By its nature, an emergency situation is temporary. If it were to last, men would perish. It is only in emergency situations that one should volunteer to help strangers, if it is in one's power. For instance, a man who values human life and is caught in a shipwreck should help to save his fellow passengers, though not at the expense of his own life. But this does not mean that after they all reach shore, he should devote his efforts to saving his fellow passengers from poverty, ignorance, neuroses, or whatever other troubles they might have. Nor does it mean that he should spend his life sailing the seven seas in search of a shipwreck victim to save. Or, to take an example that can occur in everyday life, suppose one hears that the man next door is ill and penniless. Illness and poverty are not metaphysical emergencies. They are part of the normal risks of existence. But since the man is temporarily helpless, one may bring him food and medicine if one can afford it, as an act of goodwill, not of duty. Or one may raise a fund among the neighbors to help him out. But this does not mean that one must support him from then on, nor that one must spend one's life looking for starving men to help. In the normal conditions of existence, man has to choose his goals, project them in time, pursue them, and achieve them by his own effort. He cannot do it if his goals are at the mercy of, and must be sacrificed to, any misfortune happening to others. He cannot live his life by the guidance of rules applicable only to conditions under which human survival is impossible. The principle that one should help men in an emergency cannot be extended to regard all human suffering as an emergency, and to turn the misfortune of some into a first mortgage on the lives of others. Poverty, ignorance, illness, and other problems of that kind are not metaphysical emergencies. By the metaphysical nature of man and of existence, man has to maintain his life by his own effort. The values he needs, such as wealth or knowledge, are not given to him automatically as a gift of nature, but have to be discovered and achieved by his own thinking and work. One's sole obligation toward others in this respect is to maintain a social system that leaves men free to achieve, to gain, and to keep their values. Every code of ethics is based on and derived from metaphysics. That is, from a theory about the fundamental nature of the universe in which men live and act. The altruist ethics is based on a malevolent universe metaphysics, on the theory that man, by his very nature, is helpless and doomed, that success, happiness, achievement are impossible to him, that emergencies, disasters, catastrophes are the norm of his life, and that his primary goal is to combat them. As the simplest empirical refutation of that metaphysics, as evidence of the fact that the material universe is not inimical to man, and that catastrophes are the exception, not the rule of his existence, observe the fortunes made by insurance companies. Observe also that the advocates of altruism were unable to base their ethics on any facts of men's normal existence, and that they always offer lifeboat situations as examples from which to derive their rules of moral conduct. What should you do if you and another man are on a lifeboat that can carry only one, etc.? The fact is that men do not live in lifeboats, that a lifeboat is not the place on which to base one's metaphysics. The moral purpose of a man's life is the achievement of his own happiness. This does not mean that he is indifferent to all men, that human life is of no value to him, and that he has no reason to help others in an emergency. But it does mean that he does not subordinate his life to the welfare of others, that he does not sacrifice himself to their needs, that the relief of their suffering is not his primary concern, that any help he gives is an exception, not a rule, an act of generosity, not of moral duty, that it is marginal and incidental, as disasters are marginal and incidental in the course of human existence, and that values, not disasters, are the goal, the first concern, and the motive power of his life. And that was the chapter 3, or the second part of chapter 3 of the book, The Virtue of Selfishness by Ayn Rand. And from the back cover, it reads, The Virtue of Selfishness. Ayn Rand here sets forth the moral principles of objectivism, the philosophy that holds man's life, the life proper to a rational being, as the standard of moral values, and regards altruism as incompatible with man's nature, with the creative requirements of his survival, and with a free society. Ayn Rand wrote Atlas Shrugged, philosophically the most challenging bestseller of its time. Her first novel, We the Living, was published in 1936. With the publication of The Fountainhead in 1943, she achieved a spectacular and enduring success. Ms. Rand's unique philosophy, objectivism, has gained a worldwide audience. The fundamentals of her philosophy are set forth in 4 nonfiction books: Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology, For the New Intellectual, The Virtue of Selfishness, and Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. The magnificent statement of her artistic credo, The Romantic Manifesto, is also available in a Signet edition. I would also like to mention that the book that I think is the most important for people just getting started and wanting to get interested in philosophy and things philosophical is a book by Ayn Rand that wasn't mentioned there, and its title is Philosophy, Who Needs It? No question mark. Ayn Rand seemed to be rather fond of not contradiction, but irony. And so she used a lot of irony in her titles. The Virtue of Selfishness. There's a certain irony in that. Let's see. And Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. And, of course, Philosophy, Who Needs It? with a question mark. And in the Philosophy Who Needs It book, she is basically making the statement that philosophy is not optional. It's mandatory. It's inescapable. That everything you do, every thought that you have, every decision you make is philosophy-based. The only question is which philosophical theory or theories are your decisions based on. So it's a book I would highly recommend, again, to anybody that is interested in philosophy, and everybody should be interested in it, and wanting to get started. It's a great starting point for philosophical issues. And then from there, I would suggest there's a lot of books by Totem/Icon. I think Totem is the UK company that publishes. But basically what it is they're books that are the introduction series. So it'll be introduction to philosophy, introduction to ethics, that kind of thing. And they are picture books, basically. So they explain things, but they use a lot of illustrations in it as well. So thank you for joining me for another episode of Story Time. And the next episode is going to be next Tuesday. So that would be... 3rd, 4th, 5th, no, not next Tuesday, next Monday, February, I believe that would be February the 6th. And I hope to see you there, and have a great day and a great weekend.